Captain Lee Daeho stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship was humanity's first real step into deep space. After 3 months of travel, they had finally reached the edge of what humans called their local sector. "Captain, we have something on sensors," said Commander Kim Jin-woo from his station. "It's big and it's not moving like any asteroid I've ever seen." Lee walked over to look at the readings. The object was definitely artificial. It had smooth curves and seemed to glow with a soft blue light. "Are there any life signs?" Dr. Park Soman checked her instruments. "Yes, Captain. The readings are strange, but there's definitely something alive on that ship." This was it. First contact with an alien species. Lee felt his heart beating faster. "Open a channel. All frequencies." Before Kim could respond, the alien ship sent them a message. A beautiful voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect English. "Human vessel, I am Kalmoth Shireen of the Veiltar people. Please do not be afraid. I come in peace." The main screen flickered and suddenly they could see inside the alien ship. The being that appeared was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to change colors like oil on water. Her large eyes were kind, and she moved with the fluid motion of someone who lived in low gravity. "I am Captain Lee Daeho of the United Earthship Indomitable," Lee said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This is humanity's first meeting with your people." Shireen smiled and her skin glowed brighter. "I know, Captain Lee. We have been watching your species for some time. You have achieved faster than light travel much sooner than we expected." "You've been watching us?" Dr. Park stepped forward. "For how long?" "Only a few years," Shireen said gently. "We noticed your radio signals about a century ago, but we could not make contact until now. There are rules, you see. Important rules that keep the galaxy safe." Lee felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of rules?" Shireen's expression became serious. "The galaxy is home to many species, Captain. Some are peaceful, like my people. Others are less so. Long ago, the Galactic Council created the Silence Doctrine to protect young species like yours." Kim leaned forward. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means your species must remain silent for 500 standard years," Shireen explained. "No expansion beyond your home system. No transmissions that travel beyond your star. You must wait quietly while the Council studies your people and decides if you are ready to join galactic civilization." Dr. Park couldn't hide her shock. 500 years? But that's impossible. Humanity isn't built to sit still and wait. "I understand your concern," Shireen said softly. "But this is how it has always been done. The Silence Doctrine has kept peace in the galaxy for thousands of years. Species that try to expand too quickly often become aggressive. They start wars. They hurt others." Lee studied the alien's face. She seemed genuinely concerned for humanity's welfare. "And if we refuse to follow this doctrine?" Shireen's skin dimmed. "Please do not think such thoughts, Captain. The Council has ways of enforcing the silence. They have powerful ships and weapons beyond your current understanding. But they are not cruel. They only act when a species becomes a threat to others." "How many species have successfully completed this waiting period?" Dr. Park asked. "Many," Shireen said, though she seemed to hesitate. "The Council archives contain records of dozens of successful integrations." Commander Kim had been quietly studying the alien ship's readings. "Captain, their vessel is much more advanced than ours. I'm reading weapon systems that could destroy our ship without effort." Shireen nodded sadly. "I am sorry, Commander, but yes. The Veiltar ships are equipped for enforcement duties. However, I hope we will never need to use such capabilities. I believe your species can learn to follow the Silence Doctrine." "What happens now?" Lee asked. "I will report to the Council that first contact has been made. They will begin monitoring your system to ensure compliance with the silence. Small monitoring stations will be placed throughout your solar system. These are for your protection as much as ours." Dr. Park stepped closer to the screen. "Can we learn about your technology?" "Your culture?" "Surely some exchange is allowed." "I am afraid not," Shireen said gently. "Contact must be minimal during the silence period. Too much knowledge too quickly can destabilize a developing species. Trust in the wisdom of the Council, Dr. Park. They have guided many species to peaceful membership in galactic society." Lee felt like walls were closing in around humanity. "And we have no choice in this matter?" Shireen's skin flickered between blue and green. "There is always a choice, Captain. But I hope you will choose wisely. Your species shows great promise. Do not let pride destroy that future." The conversation continued for another hour, with Shireen explaining more details about the silence doctrine. She was patient and kind, answering every question. But underneath her gentle words, the message was clear: obey or be destroyed. Finally, Shireen prepared to leave. I will return to Council Space to make my report. Other ships will arrive soon to begin monitoring your system. Please, Captain Lee, convince your leaders to accept the silence. I would hate to see humanity become another cautionary tale. After the alien ship disappeared in a flash of blue light, the bridge of the Indomitable was quiet for a long time. What do you think, Captain? Kim finally asked. Lee stared at the empty space where the alien ship had been. I think we just learned that we're not alone in the universe. And I think we just learned that we're prisoners in our own solar system. Dr. Park was studying her readings from the encounter. The technology gap is enormous. If they wanted to destroy us, they could do it easily. But they seem peaceful, Kim said. Maybe the silence doctrine really is for our own good. Lee shook his head. Maybe, but 500 years, Jinwoo? Think about what humanity was like 500 years ago. We would never accept being told to stop exploring, stop growing, stop being human. So what do? Dr. Park asked. Lee looked at his crew, then back at the stars. We go home. We report what we've learned. And we let Earth's leaders decide how humanity responds to being put in a cage. As the Indomitable turned toward Earth, none of them noticed the small dark objects that had appeared at the edge of the solar system. The monitoring had already begun. The galaxy expected humanity to accept their chains quietly. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The alien ultimatum had expired 6 hours ago. War Prime Thexkar stood on the bridge of his massive battleship, studying the primitive human world below. His fleet of 200 ships surrounded Earth like a steel net, waiting for the final order. Still no response to our relocation demands, reported his tactical officer. The humans continue to ignore our communications. Thexkar's red eyes glowed brighter. In 5,000 years of hegemony service, no species had ever simply ignored him. They either submitted immediately or died quickly. This delay was unusual. Open a channel to the human leadership, he commanded. Admiral Choi Hyun-sik appeared on the screen, standing in what looked like a military command center. Behind him, human officers worked frantically at their stations. War Prime Thexkar, Choi said calmly. I believe you're waiting for our response to your ultimatum. The time for compliance has passed, Thexkar replied. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences. Choi smiled, and something about that expression made Thexkar uncomfortable. We've prepared our response. Would you like to hear it? Speak quickly. My patience is exhausted. Our response is no. We will not be relocated. We will not submit to your control. And we will not go quietly into whatever fate you have planned for us. Thexkar felt a moment of confusion. In his experience, species that refused relocation usually screamed defiance or begged for mercy. This human seemed almost relaxed. You understand that refusal means death for your entire species? Thexkar asked. We understand that you are always planning to kill us anyway, Choi replied. Your own records show that no species has ever successfully completed the silence doctrine. So we're choosing to die on our feet instead of on our knees. Before Thexkar could respond, alarms began blaring on his ship. War Prime, his tactical officer shouted. Multiple explosions throughout the fleet. We're under attack. Impossible, Thexkar snarled. Their ships are primitive. Our sensors would detect any approach. But the explosions continued. On the tactical display, Thexkar watched in shock as support ships throughout his fleet reported damage from weapons that seemed to appear from nowhere. Captain Bay, Minho smiled grimly as his stealth fighter slipped away from another successful attack run. Colonel Yoon's modifications to the alien technology had worked perfectly. His ship was essentially invisible to hegemony sensors. Phoenix Squadron report, he said into his communicator. Phoenix 2 here. Supply ship destroyed. Moving to next target. Phoenix 3. Damage to enemy battleship engines. They're dead in space. Phoenix 4. Troop transport eliminated. No survivors. Lieutenant Han Soo-jin was having the time of her life. Her fighter danced between the massive alien ships like a sparrow among elephants. The aliens kept trying to target her with their advanced weapons, but human pilots didn't fly in the predictable patterns their computers expected. This is Phoenix 7, she reported. I've got 3 enemy fighters chasing me, leading them toward the asteroid field. She rolled her ship upside down and dove toward a large asteroid, pulling up at the last second. The alien fighters, flying in perfect formation, couldn't match her sudden maneuver. 2 of them crashed into the rock. The third managed to pull up, only to find Han's fighter waiting above with weapons ready. On Luna Base, Admiral Choi watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The hegemony fleet was powerful, but they had never faced an enemy that refused to fight fairly. "Admiral," reported Commander Kim Jin-woo, "our stealth squadrons have destroyed or disabled 30% of their support vessels. Their troop transports are gone. What about their main battle fleet? Still operational, but they're having trouble targeting our ships. Their weapons are designed for long-range combat against predictable enemies." Dr. Park So-min looked up from her station. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive psychic energy from the alien flagship. I think they're trying to use their mind control technology on our pilots." "Is it working?" "No, sir. Human neural patterns are still too chaotic for their systems to affect. If anything, our pilots are getting more aggressive." On the hegemony flagship, War Prime Thexkar struggled to understand what was happening. His fleet was being torn apart by ships his sensors could barely detect, piloted by beings his psychic weapons couldn't control. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 67 destroyed or disabled," his tactical officer replied, his voice shaking. "Most of our support fleet is gone. The humans are using some kind of stealth technology we've never encountered." "Impossible. No species developed stealth systems during their first conflict with the hegemony. Sir, these humans are not like other species. They don't fight the way our models predict. Their tactics are completely random." Thexkar activated his personal communicator, sending an emergency message to the hegemony high command. "This is War Prime Thexkar. Request immediate reinforcements." "The human species is more dangerous than assessed," the reply came quickly. "Negative. Use orbital bombardment. Eliminate the threat permanently." Thexkar hesitated. Orbital bombardment was usually a last resort, used only against species that posed serious threats to galactic order. But his fleet was being destroyed by invisible enemies using impossible tactics. "Prepare orbital bombardment cannons," he ordered. "Target all major population centers." But as his weapons powered up, more explosions rocked his ship. Human stealth fighters had somehow penetrated his defensive screen and were attacking his battleship directly. Captain Bae Min-ho led the assault on the flagship. "All Phoenix units concentrate fire on their weapon systems. Don't let them target Earth." The battle became a desperate race. The hegemony ships tried to position for orbital bombardment, while human fighters swarmed around them like angry bees, striking at weapons and engines on Earth. Billions of people watched the battle in the sky above. They saw alien ships exploding in brilliant flashes of light. They saw human fighters darting between massive enemy vessels. And slowly, impossibly, they began to believe that humanity might actually win. War Prime. Thexkar watched his fleet dissolve around him. Half his ships were destroyed or disabled. His remaining vessels were scattered and demoralized. And still the invisible human ships kept attacking. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender demands from the human admiral." Surrender demands? Thexkar couldn't believe what he was hearing. Admiral Choi's voice filled the bridge. "War Prime Thexkar, your fleet is defeated. We demand your immediate withdrawal from our solar system. Any attempt at orbital bombardment will result in the complete destruction of your remaining ships." Thexkar looked at his tactical display. It was true. His massive invasion force had been reduced to a collection of damaged ships struggling to stay together. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No species has ever defeated a hegemony fleet." "You're right," Choi replied. "No species has ever tried. Every other race you've encountered was already broken by your psychic control systems. But humans don't break easily and we don't fight fair." For the first time in his long military career, War Prime Thexkar gave the order to retreat. As the surviving hegemony ships limped away from Earth, humanity realized something incredible had happened. They had not only survived first contact with a galactic empire, they had won. The galaxy had expected humanity's silence. Instead, they heard the thunder of human defiance echoing across the stars. News of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. In the deep archives of the Hegemony Council, emergency sessions were called for the first time in centuries. A silent species had not only refused relocation, they had destroyed an entire enforcement fleet. Kalemoth Shireen stood before the council chambers, her skin dim with worry. As the first contact specialist who had discovered humanity, she was being questioned about her assessment of the species. You reported them as manageable with standard protocols, accused High Arbiter Velnoth, his ancient voice echoing through the crystal halls. Yet they have inflicted the worst military defeat in hegemony history. Honored Arbiter, the humans showed no signs of advanced military capability during first contact, Shireen replied. Their technology was primitive. Their ship design was basic. How could anyone predict they would develop stealth systems and resistance to psychic control? Perhaps, suggested another council member, because you did not want to see the truth. Your reports speak of finding the humans fascinating and uniquely creative. Did personal interest cloud your professional judgment? Shireen's skin flashed angry red before she controlled herself. I reported exactly what I observed. If the council wishes to blame someone for underestimating the humans, perhaps blame our assumptions about how conquered species should behave. Meanwhile, on distant worlds throughout the galaxy, other species were hearing impossible stories. In the crystal caves of Corthan, harmonic resonator Quill felt vibrations in the galaxy's psychic network that had been silent for 800 years, the sound of defiance. On the hive world of Melthar, Queen Voice Zephys experienced something her people had forgotten existed: hope. For 2,000 years, her species had waited quietly for permission to rejoin galactic civilization. They had accepted the monitoring. They had submitted to the psychic conditioning. They had been model prisoners. But now, somewhere in the galaxy, another species had said no. Captain Lee Daeho commanded the newly built UES Liberation as it approached the edge of Melthari space. His mission was simple: make contact with species still under the Silence Doctrine and offer them an alternative. Captain, reported Dr. Park So-min, I'm detecting massive psychic interference from the planet below. The hegemony has some kind of mental control system operating there. Can we break through it? Maybe. Professor Nam's research suggests that human neural patterns create interference with hegemony psychic technology. Our presence alone might disrupt their control systems. As the Liberation moved closer to Melthar, something unexpected happened. The planet's psychic silence began to crack. For the first time in millennia, individual Melthari voices could be heard through the collective hive mind. Queen Voice Zephys felt the change immediately. Her people's thoughts, which had been forced into peaceful unity for so long, suddenly exploded with questions, anger, and forgotten dreams of freedom. What is happening? She asked the hegemony overseers who monitored her world. Minor psychic interference, they replied. It will pass, but it didn't pass. Instead, it grew stronger as the human ship approached. And with it came something the Melthari had almost forgotten: the ability to choose. On Corthan, similar changes were occurring. Harmonic resonator Quill felt his crystalline form vibrating with frequencies that had been suppressed for centuries. The mathematical patterns that governed his people's thoughts were becoming chaotic, unpredictable. Free. Captain Lee opened communications with both worlds. This is Captain Lee Daeho of the Free Species Alliance. We're here to offer you a choice. You don't have to remain silent anymore. The response from Queen Voice Zephys came as a flood of overlapping voices. Human friend Captain Liberator, we here feel know your words. The silence chain's control breaks around us. What, how, when can we choose freedom? First, you need to understand what the Silence Doctrine really is, Lee replied. Dr. Park will transmit our findings about the hegemony's true intentions. The data package contained everything humanity had discovered. The weapon platforms disguised as monitoring stations. The records of eliminated species. The proof that no one had ever successfully completed the waiting period. On Melthar, the revelation caused a psychic storm that could be felt across the planet. 2,000 years of forced patience exploded into rage. They lied. Queen Voice Zephys spoke with the combined fury of billions. They never intended to free us. We are food animals being prepared for slaughter. On Corthan, harmonic resonator Quill's song became a war cry that shattered crystal formations across the planet. The patterns were false. The equations were lies. We have been solving the wrong problem. But the hegemony didn't give up easily. War Prime Thexkar, his reputation damaged by the defeat at Earth, was given one last chance to prove his worth. He was ordered to stop the human influence from spreading. Destroy the human ship, commanded High Arbiter Velnoth. Eliminate the rebels on Melthar and Korthan. Restore order. Thexkar's remaining fleet moved to intercept the liberation, but they found something unexpected waiting for them. The newly awakened species had been busy. Melthari bioships, grown in secret during their long silence, emerged from hidden orbital gardens. These living vessels moved like no machine ever could, flowing through space with organic grace. Korthani crystal ships, built using mathematical principles the hegemony had tried to suppress, appeared in perfect geometric formations that hurt to look at directly. And in the center of this unlikely fleet flew human vessels, teaching their new allies the chaotic combat tactics that had defeated the greatest military power in the galaxy. Colonel Yoon Hai-jin coordinated the joint attack from her stealth command ship. Melthari bioships, use your adaptive hulls to absorb their energy weapons. Korthani crystal ships, use your resonance drives to disrupt their electronics. Human fighters, hit everything that moves. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Melthari ships flowed around hegemony weapons like water, their living hulls healing damage faster than it could be inflicted. Korthani vessels sang mathematical songs that made enemy computers crash and alien minds ache, and human pilots darted through the chaos, striking where the enemy least expected. War Prime Thexkar watched his second fleet fall apart, just as quickly as his first. This is impossible, he repeated. 3 species cannot defeat the hegemony. Actually, came a new voice over the communications. It's 4 species now. Another fleet appeared. Ships from the Velkari Confederacy, a species that had been silent for 1,500 years. Their quantum phase vessels flickered in and out of reality, impossible to target or predict. This is Admiral Sektar of the Velkari Liberation Fleet, the voice announced. We received the human data about hegemony lies. We choose freedom. Captain Lee smiled as he watched more and more species join the growing alliance. Thexkar, you wanted to restore order. Congratulations. You've helped us create a new kind of order, one based on choice instead of fear. Across the galaxy, the psychic control networks that had kept hundreds of species docile for millennia began failing. The presence of humans seemed to act like a virus in the hegemony systems, spreading chaos and free will wherever they went. On the hegemony capital world, High Arbiter Velnoth stared at reports of rebellion from dozens of worlds. Species that had been silent for thousands of years were suddenly building fleets, demanding answers, choosing freedom. How did this happen? He asked his advisors. The humans honored Arbiter. Their neural patterns are incompatible with our control systems. Their presence disrupts the psychic networks that maintain order. Then we eliminate them completely, mobilize the full hegemony fleet, destroy Earth and scatter their allies. But Velnoth's advisor hesitated. Honored Arbiter, the humans have done something we never expected. They're teaching other species to fight. The rebellion is spreading faster than we can contain it. For the first time in 5,000 years, the hegemony faced a real threat. And at the center of it all was a species that refused to be quiet, refused to submit, and refused to let others suffer in silence. The galaxy had expected humanity's whispered submission. Instead, they heard the roar of a revolution that was just beginning. The final battle would take place at Nexus Prime, the hegemony's capital world. Admiral Choi Hyun-sik stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for combat. 2 years after humanity's first victory, the Free Species Alliance had grown beyond anyone's imagination. Final count, Admiral? Asked Captain Bae Min-ho. 47 species, over 10,000 ships, Choi replied. The Melthari biofleet alone has 3,000 vessels. The Korthani brought their entire crystal armada. Even species we've never heard of are joining us. Dr. Park So-min looked up from her sensor station. Admiral, I'm detecting something unusual about Nexus Prime. The psychic control signals coming from that world are unlike anything we've encountered. They're not just controlling nearby populations, they're coordinating the entire hegemony network across the galaxy. A central control hub, realized Captain Lee Dae-ho from his position aboard the diplomatic ship UES Unity. If we can destroy it, the psychic control systems everywhere might collapse. Colonel Yoon Hai-jin's voice came over the communication system from her stealth command vessel. Admiral, I've got eyes on the hegemony defense fleet. It's the largest military force ever assembled. They've got over 15,000 ships protecting Nexus Prime. Odds? Choi asked. Terrible, Yoon replied cheerfully. But when have humans ever cared about odds? The battle began with a declaration that echoed across the galaxy. Admiral Choi broadcast on all frequencies. People of the galaxy, this is Admiral Choi Hyun-sik of the Free Species Alliance. Today we end 5,000 years of forced silence. Today we choose freedom. High Arbiter Velnoth responded from his fortress on Nexus Prime. Rebellious species, you face the full might of galactic order. Surrender now, and some of you may survive to serve the hegemony as slaves. Counteroffer, came the reply from Queen Voice Zephys, her bioship leading the Melthari fleet. Surrender now, and we promise to let you live long enough to stand trial for crimes against every thinking being in the galaxy. The space around Nexus Prime erupted in the largest battle in galactic history. Hegemony ships fired massive energy beams that could destroy planets, but Melthari biovessels simply absorbed the energy and grew stronger. Korthani crystal ships sang mathematical songs that turned the laws of physics into weapons, making enemy missiles forget how to explode and energy beams flow backward. Human fighters danced through the chaos like deadly butterflies, appearing where the enemy least expected and vanishing before retaliation could arrive. Lieutenant Han Soo-jin led a squadron of mixed-species pilots who fought with the unpredictable tactics that had become humanity's signature. Phoenix Squadron, we've got a gap in their defensive line, she reported. All ships, follow me. Time to show these bullies what happens when you try to cage free spirits. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Kael'moth Shireen, the Veiltar diplomat who had made first contact with humanity, suddenly appeared in the middle of the battlefield with a fleet of her own people. This is Kael'moth Shireen to all Alliance forces, she broadcast. The Veiltar people choose freedom. We have spent too long enforcing the hegemony's lies. Her ships immediately began targeting hegemony vessels, using their intimate knowledge of enemy systems to devastating effect. Other hegemony species, seeing the Veiltar rebellion, began questioning their own loyalty. War Prime Thexkar, commanding the defense of Nexus Prime, watched his perfect battle plan fall apart. How can they coordinate so many different species? It should be impossible. His tactical officer provided the answer. Sir, they're not using our communication systems. The humans taught them to use chaos encryption that our computers can't decode. They're talking to each other using randomness itself. As the battle raged in space, a smaller force led by Captain Lee Daeho managed to reach the surface of Nexus Prime. Their mission was to destroy the central psychic control system that had enslaved the galaxy. The facility is underground, reported Dr. Park as their shuttle landed. It's protected by automated defenses and thousands of hegemony troops. Then we'll have to get creative, Lee replied. Professor Nam, can you use the human neural interference effect to disrupt their systems? Professor Nam Dong-hyun had been working on this problem for months. I've developed a way to amplify human thought patterns using quantum resonance. If we can get close enough to the central control system, human consciousness itself might be able to overload it. They fought their way through the facility, facing enemies that had never experienced real resistance. Hegemony soldiers used to fighting psychically controlled opponents who moved predictably couldn't adapt to human tactics that made no sense. Finally, they reached the central chamber. At its heart was a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with the psychic energy of an entire galaxy. This is it, Dr. Park whispered. The source of 5,000 years of mental slavery. How do we destroy it? Lee asked. Professor Nam activated his quantum resonance device. We think at it. As chaotically and humanly as possible. The humans in the chamber began focusing their thoughts on freedom, rebellion, choice, and hope. The crystalline control system, designed to process ordered, predictable thought patterns, began vibrating violently as it tried to process the pure randomness of human consciousness. Above them, the space battle suddenly changed. Across the galaxy, species that had been psychically controlled for millennia suddenly found themselves able to think freely for the first time. Hegemony ships began defecting en masse as their crews realized they had been slaves all along. High Arbiter Velnoth felt his ancient mind crack as the psychic network he had controlled for so long suddenly exploded with 10,000 different voices, all demanding freedom. Impossible, he gasped. Order must be maintained. Chaos must be controlled. But chaos had already won. The crystal control system shattered, sending psychic shockwaves across the galaxy that broke every remaining mind control device the hegemony had ever built. War Prime Thexkar, his own mind suddenly free of the conditioning that had made him a perfect soldier, looked around at the destruction he had helped cause and quietly ordered his ships to surrender. In the aftermath, as the smoke cleared and the dead were counted, something remarkable happened. Instead of establishing a new empire, the Free Species Alliance chose to create something that had never existed before, a true galactic democracy. Admiral Choi became the first president of the Galactic Confederation of Independent Worlds. Captain Lee headed the new Department of Interspecies Relations. Dr. Park led the Scientific Exchange Council, helping species share knowledge freely for the first time in galactic history. Colonel Yoon established the Confederation Defense Force, not to conquer worlds but to protect the freedom of all species to choose their own destiny. And at the center of it all, humanity continued to do what they did best: spread chaos, ask uncomfortable questions, and refuse to accept that anything was impossible. The galaxy that had once demanded silence now rang with the voices of 1,000 freed worlds. Some sang songs of joy. Others spoke poems of remembrance for the lost years. A few argued loudly about the best way forward, but all of them were free to make noise, and that made all the difference. The universe had expected humanity's whispered submission. Instead, it heard the symphony of liberation itself, conducted by a species that had never learned to be quiet and never intended to start. As Kael'moth Shireen said in her address to the new Galactic Council, "The humans taught us something we had forgotten. The galaxy is not meant to be silent. It is meant to sing." And across the stars, from Earth to the farthest rim worlds, the galaxy finally began to sing again. 2 years had passed since first contact, and Earth felt like a prison. Admiral Choi Hyun-sik stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the latest reports from the monitoring stations that now surrounded their solar system. The aliens called them protective sensors, but everyone knew what they really were. Another merchant ship was turned back at the Jupiter barrier, reported Colonel Yoon Hae-jin as she entered the room. The captain tried to push through, and the alien systems disabled his engines with some kind of energy beam. Choi nodded grimly. "How many does that make this month?" 15 attempts, all stopped, Yoon said. "The crews are getting frustrated. Some are talking about fighting back." "Fighting back with what?" Choi asked. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours." But Yoon had been working on that problem. For the past year, she had been leading a secret project in the deepest levels of Luna Base. Her team had managed to capture one of the smaller alien monitoring drones that had malfunctioned and drifted too close to Earth. "Actually, Admiral, I think we might have something," she said quietly. "Can we talk privately?" They walked to a secure room deep underground. Yoon activated several jamming devices before speaking. "We've learned a lot from that drone," she said. "The aliens' technology is advanced, but it's not magic. More importantly, we've discovered something they don't know about us." She activated a holographic display showing brain scans. "Professor Nam Dong-hyun has been studying human neural patterns compared to the alien monitoring data. Humans think differently than other species. Our thoughts are more chaotic, more unpredictable." "Is that bad?" Choi asked. "It might be the best news we've ever had," Yoon smiled. "The aliens use psychic control technology to keep other species calm during their silence periods. It works by creating ordered thought patterns that make species accept their situation. But human brains resist this control naturally." Choi stared at the brain scans. "You're saying they can't control our minds?" "Not easily. And there's more." Captain Lee's reports from his meetings with other alien ships show that most silent species become very passive after a few years. They stop trying to explore or expand. They just wait quietly for the Council's permission to join galactic society. "But we haven't stopped trying," Choi realized. "Exactly. Every month, more ships try to break through the barriers. More colonies demand the right to expand. More scientists work on better technology. The aliens expected us to become docile by now, but we're getting more restless." Yoon brought up another display. "We've also discovered something else about those monitoring stations. They're not just watching us. They're weapons platforms capable of destroying entire planets." Choi felt cold. "They're not here to protect us." "No, sir. We've analyzed the wreckage fields beyond the barriers. There are debris patterns from dozens of different species ships, all destroyed for breaking silence according to the alien databases we've hacked." "How many species have actually completed the 500-year waiting period?" Choi asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. According to their own records, 0. Every species is eventually eliminated for being too aggressive or unsuitable for galactic membership. The silence doctrine isn't a test, Admiral. It's a delayed execution. Before Choi could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the base. They rushed back to the command center, where staff were frantically working at their stations. What's happening? Choi demanded. Large alien fleet entering the system, reported Commander Kim Jin-woo. Bigger ships than we've seen before. They're broadcasting a message. The main screen flickered to life, showing a very different alien than the gentle Shireen. This one was tall and armored, with glowing red eyes and a voice like grinding metal. I am War Prime Thexkar of the Hegemony Enforcement Corps, the alien announced. Your species has been classified as non-compliant with silence doctrine standards. You will immediately cease all expansion activities and prepare for relocation to a more suitable world. Admiral Choi stepped forward. I am Admiral Choi Hyun-sik of the United Earth Defense Force. By what authority do you make these demands? By the authority of the Galactic Council and 5,000 years of successful peace enforcement, Thexkar replied coldly. Your species has shown dangerous levels of aggression and independence. You will be relocated for the safety of all galactic civilization. And if we refuse? Choi asked. Refusal is not an option. Prepare your population for transport. You have 72 standard hours. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Sir, Kim said quietly, we've analyzed the ships in that fleet. They could glass our entire planet in minutes. But Colonel Yoon was studying the readings with a different expression. Maybe not all of them, she said thoughtfully. What do you mean? Choi asked. Look at the formation. These aren't just warships. Half of them are transports and support vessels. They're expecting easy compliance, not a fight. Dr. Park So-min, who had been working with Professor Nam on the Neural Resistance Project, spoke up from her station. Admiral, I've been monitoring alien communications during their peaceful operations. They use the same psychic control systems on their own crews. Most of them aren't really choosing to follow orders. They're being controlled. You're saying their own people are prisoners too? Choi asked. In a way, yes. The hegemony maintains control through mental conditioning. That's why they've never faced real resistance before. Every species either submits to the psychic control or gets destroyed before they can organize effective resistance. Colonel Yoon pulled up the defensive plans she'd been secretly developing. Admiral, we might not be able to win a straight fight, but we could hurt them badly enough to make them reconsider. How? Stealth ships based on modified alien technology. Hit-and-run attacks on their support vessels. Force them to treat us as a real threat instead of sheep being led to slaughter. Admiral Choi looked around at his staff. He saw fear in their faces, but also determination. Humanity had never been good at accepting cages. How long would we need to prepare? He asked. The stealth systems are ready now, Yoon said. But Admiral, once we fight back, there's no going back. They'll never let us live peacefully. Choi nodded slowly. They were never going to let us live anyway. At least this way we go down fighting. He activated the general communication system. All stations, this is Admiral Choi. As of this moment, Earth is officially rejecting the silence doctrine. We will not be relocated. We will not submit to alien control. Humanity chooses freedom. Across the solar system, human colonies and ships received the message. Some panicked. Some despaired. But most began preparing for the fight of their lives. The aliens had expected humanity to quietly accept their fate. They were about to learn that humans had never been very good at staying quiet.